Glass allows us to see in and out and invites us to imagine. Imagine Museum, Contemporary Glass Art.
Welcome everyone to another I Am Exchange, and I am Jane Buckman, the Executive Director of Imagine Museum, and I'm delighted to bring to you today contemporary artist Matt Eskuche. Welcome, Matt.
Hi there. Good morning.
So people who frequent the museum, they know your piece, Agritocracy, and I have to ask you about that title at some point. But a lot of people at the museum just refer to it as white trash. So they don't know how to, but you know, it is that sense that they get. But as we, let's just start looking at your slides. We're going to look at slides of your earlier work. And I would just like for you to talk to us about your evolution as an artist and how you began working with the glass material. So you can talk over these slides. So feel free as we're just gonna move the slides through. So when did you start working with this series of work?
Yeah, well, I first started flame working in 1998, and then I kind of came across this sort of body of work in about 2003. And I did it for several years, not really actually, maybe 3 years. And I played around with this type of sort of sculptural groupings like this, just for a few years. By then I actually moved on to other concepts and stuff. So I really like these pieces, but it was only just a few years of a series.
So what was your intent when you were doing these pieces then? I see, so the color and some elements are transparent. So what was your intent? What was inspiring you with this type of work?
Well, yeah, this series all started after 3 or 4 years of flame working, maybe 5 years. And it was really, it just came out of me being able to be more confident with the material and make more and more different shapes and make the shapes finer and do better connections. And it was, instead of exploring one shape of whatever size, I made all these different shapes and I would assemble them in these big bottles. It just kind of came around from me playing around with all the different shapes and ways to connect them and what sort of objects you could make. And then I was looking at the market too. I mean, it was once I made these larger bottles like this, that was what got me noticed a little bit by some galleries. You know, you can make a fine little object that you just hold in your hand and people appreciate it, but you know, in the higher end craft market, you can't have that sort of scale. It has to be a larger scale.
Right. So, so where did you get your training then to start working with the glass? What motivated you to move towards glass and work with glass?
Well, I did metalsmithing starting at about age 16 or 17 in high school, and that's what I pursued after high school. I didn't go to university. I just pursued metalsmithing. And then 6 or 7 years after that, this pipe maker owed me money. I was living in Colorado. And I mean, not much money, it's $50, but back then I guess $50 went a lot further. So I traded him. He showed me how to make a pipe and then we called the debt off. And so after that, I really loved the material. I was playing with the material and I really enjoyed it. And I didn't get anything from him as far as real knowledge. So I pursued through Emilio Santini. I took a 2-month concentration at Penland in 1999. And that's how I got really involved in the material and had a wider sort of vocabulary with the material. You know, I could make more objects.
Yeah. So what about glass? What was it about the material that made you want to work?
I mean, I've used all sorts of materials. So I think it was something to do I mean, I don't know. It was just it's very exciting material when you're first using it, because you need a lot of skill, and if you have some skill, you can make a lot of, you can grow and in real time almost. And so it was just really exciting to have a material where it moved so quickly and you had to control it. And so it was just very fun to play around with.
Great. Well, if we can move on to the PowerPoint that has your painted glass series, and describe how you really, how did this series evolve? And I read on your website, it seemed to be an interesting transition. So describe how this series came about.
Well, so right before this, I was making a lot of sort of pretty objects like those bottles, stuff that had color and form, stuff that I could sell at little marketplaces or galleries or something. And then I had seen this can. I was working at a studio and there was a recycling bin and there was a can in it. It was just one can. And I kept passing it and then I thought like, oh, I should make a can, just a soda can. And so I was doing other stuff, but finally I made this can, and then I was like, this is a really strange object. Seemed strange to me, and it seemed strange to people I showed it to. And it was just kind of exciting to have an object where people couldn't really, they didn't have the same things to say about it. It's pretty, or it's blue, or what a nice shape or whatever. Everybody had a weird sort of a different, unique take on it. So I just sort of like did a ton of trash, and there was nobody, this was 2005, and there was nobody that I knew of that was making trash. And there was only a few people that were like critics or sort of like burgeoning curators and stuff that told me about people that had made trash in glass. And so I just ignored anything that I thought had already been done, which I didn't see much of. So I just made trash, tons of it. And it was exciting to make, and it was interesting content for me for a lot of reasons. We can talk about, since that's 2005, I'm going on 17, 18 years or whatever with it. And so it has evolved. My outlook, my perspective on trash or the trash I make, or it has changed through the years. So
talk a little bit about that, because I'm fascinated by it as well. And as you talk about that and what trash means to you, what it meant to you back then and what it means to you today, the title for the piece that we have here at Imagine Museum, you have to explain to me why that title.
Yeah,
I've looked it up. I can't.
no, it's just a play on words. It's agristocracy.
Yeah.
I did a show at Racine Art Museum in 2010, and this is a your piece that you have was part of what was installed in that show. And that show I wanted to title Agristocracy. It ended up with a different name. Actually, no, it was titled Agristocracy. Sorry. And this piece was in there titled Agristocracy. So it's just a play on aristocracy and agriculture, because a lot of the objects in my mind when I'm looking at them and making them, some of it revolves around it revolves a lot around sort of convenience and like quickness and like obsolescence, and the corn subsidies. I'm sure you're aware we've geared a lot of our sweeteners towards corn syrup because of the corn subsidies. NAFTA, there's a lot to it politically, and so it was just kind of a little bit tongue-in-cheek nod to how the agriculture industry has guided some of the drinks that go into these containers.
Yeah, very, and we discussed, we're both from the Midwest, so we know about that corn. So, so then let's talk about the intention and your statement, and maybe when you started making those pieces in 2005 and have been doing it, how has that changed? How has your intent and your statement changed over these last 15 plus years?
Yeah. When I first made the first can and then some water bottles and stuff like that, it was really only to try to mimic the form and try to see if I had the skill, and it was interested in my own mind through using my skill to make this object, to try to replicate this object. So I made these objects just simply to, instead of me designing a form, me making a perfume bottle and designing how it was shaped and everything, this form was already dictated to me and I just was going to mimic it. So that was using my skill in a different way. And it had nothing to do with concept at all. I wasn't concerned necessarily with trash or consumption or anything that is actually involved in this work conceptually. So over time, I sort of started to think, well, I can use this work to make commentary on waste or on consumption or on the politics involved in like these corn subsidies, the stuff with advertising, the life cycle. For these plastic bottles, you have to drill for oil first off. So there's a lot of politics involved in all this. So there's been a really wide ranging evolution of how I've thought about what's involved in trash. I mean, I can make the same object for 15 years straight. And sometimes I'm making it to replicate the form, and sometimes I'm making it to speak about something that's happening. I went to the Flint Museum in Detroit, well, in Flint, Michigan, a couple of years ago, and making a water bottle in Flint, Michigan is drastically different than making a water bottle wherever else, you know.
So, so people have responded to your work really as making a contemporary statement about the environment and about waste, and so where have you landed now in 2022?
Yeah, well, I definitely, the only times I ever thought I was going to make statements about waste or how us humans are destroying the environment and are hyper consumers and stuff was a little bit delusional, because what I realized later is that you know, we go out, we buy stuff at the store. It's convenient to do it. You can bring your own coffee mug to a coffee shop sometimes, not after COVID and not even a lot of times before. So you're going to end up with a single use disposable cup. And I thought for a while too that I would be a person that would always bring a reusable mug somewhere because I lessen my impact. But it's useless to do that, really. I mean, it's only through policy that these changes can be made in a substantial enough way to have any impact on our use of resources and our waste and all that. So I really look at it, I'm not making any commentary on, what as a society, how we're so wasteful, or how as a single person you can make any impact on it. I just make trash. And those are the things that I'm conscious of when I make them, is that we have very little ability to impact the wastefulness and the resource extraction as a single individual. We have those abilities as a government. And we clearly, our governments are skewed to extract resources and be wasteful.
So what would you hope that, continue sharing the video. So what would you hope as people view the work, and really as a contemporary artist, it's not only the artist's intent, it's also the viewer's response to the work. So what is your goal when people see this? What is the takeaway you would like for the viewer to have?
Yeah, this series that we're looking at right now is kind of titled Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. It's basically, that's the sort of umbrella. I mean, you can see how antique that sort of idea is.
Yeah.
Because I believe that was a television show. We don't even really have television anymore.
Yeah.
Just the internet. But so anyway, this sort of series was, I used a mirrorizing process, and it was to sort of elevate the trash. These are just objects that nobody cares about. You throw them away. They're not precious. You don't covet them. You just toss them aside. So if I mirrorized them, forgetting that they're glass and that you're only seeing them in a gallery maybe, or a museum, the mirrorizing them gave them like this preciousness and this nobility, right? So it would, I'm kind of forcing that idea on the audience. Certainly in my own mind, that's what I'm interested in. If whoever views the stuff, that's what I've really liked about the trash is over the years, especially when people didn't know that I was making it or weren't familiar that that was a series of work that I made, you get really such a varied response from it. And it's a really nice thing, because what I try to do, I make this type of stuff a lot over the years. It's a Coke bottle. And it just appears as a Coke bottle, and I'll put it into environments, and obviously people do not react with it in any sort of regular environment because it's just a piece of trash. Why would they? And sometimes they do interact with it and they don't notice that it's a piece of trash. They just throw it away. If I put it near a trash can, let's say. And so that experience, like that particular part of my experience with the trash or somebody else's experience, I'll try to give them the least amount of information I can possibly give, so that it's all from them. Any understanding or perspective they have on it is purely their own. And that's the most interesting to me, that sort of whatever somebody's, people, you give them any clues and they'll just appease you.
I agree with that. And Natalia, you want to run the transparent pieces too, the PowerPoint with the transparent pieces? I see that. So when you held up that Coke bottle, is that glass? Is that one of your Coke bottles?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It is.
So you sit that next to a receptacle, a garbage receptacle, and you observe what people, how they respond to it?
Yeah, I've put it in a lot of environments. I'm still really trying to figure out a good way, because the thing that I really want to do most of all is to give the viewer or the person that interacts with it the most freedom to perceive it on their own, with no information coming from me, so that they have the most pure interaction with it from all their perspective, right? So I mean, I've put it a lot of times, the easiest thing to do is like let's say I come to your museum, and I put it on the floor in your museum. It's going to be the only piece of trash of any kind or any other random object. That's going to be the only thing around there. If I put a backpack on the floor, then we all, then we're all a little worried or whatever, right?
A little different, right?
If that sort of atmosphere, that sort of place is going to be where I get the most reaction or the most interaction with it, but it's going to be a staff member that deals with it at that point, right? Because it's not going to be a regular person that's in the museum that goes, oh, there's trash there and it shouldn't be there, and they pick it up and throw it away. That could happen here and there, but it's most likely going to be a staff member. So it's already a really controlled environment. I'm trying to figure out ways where I I don't already know what's going to happen. Like if I put the Coke bottle down on the floor in an airport, if I put it somewhere not near a trash can, it's going to sit there for a long time until a janitorial person comes by to clean it up. If I put it right next to a trash can, I'll sometimes get people to pick it up and throw it in the trash can. If I put it on top of the trash can, heading towards the hole of the trash can, I'll get some people to go and nudge it and get it into the can. So I can predict what's going to happen. It's not very satisfying for me to
Yeah.
know what's going to happen already. And I also am very careful. I don't put it in the middle of a sidewalk because somebody could,
Yeah.
cut themselves, hurt themselves, whatever. So I'm not trying to cause any danger. But
I think conceptually, it's really, it's intriguing what you're doing. I can imagine if you place these objects in places that people might expect to see trash, but it's actually glass that you've put together. I find that all to be pretty fascinating. And I also, I just even here at the museum, the piece that you have, that there are little shards, little broken fragments.
Mhm.
And you'll enjoy this for the same reason. People will go to the front desk and say, I think there are some things broke in that, installation, because
Right.
I've seen little shards.
Yeah.
And and I think that that's just a fun way that people are looking that closely, and that they see those shards in their mind, thinking, oh, something's wrong, something's awry here. And although it was intentional by you, so I think that that's I like the twist and kind of the brain tease that you're giving people, and that they have to put it all together themselves to come up with a point of view. Moving on to this series, we've taken these slides from your website, so we just have this referred to as realistic, but
Yeah.
I find these so fascinating, because tell me what's real and tell me what is blown glass, what's not.
The easiest way is to say that any label or cap that you see on a beverage container is the label or cap that I've found it off of a real piece of single-use beverage.
Okay.
The labels in this image are from actual Sierra Nevada bottles that you buy at the store.
Mhm.
But the case itself is completely handmade, with paper and cardboard and inks, markers, and then the bottles are handmade. So it's kind of a strange, when I first started making this work, it wasn't for any reason to fool anybody or trump Loy or any of this. It was just to explore further what I was doing with trash. So like in this image, the Big Mac container is made completely from scratch. And then all the glass bottles are made from scratch, but the labels are from, they're from the store-bought thing. And it's kind of a little weird because I didn't make the labels myself for these things, because I wasn't really going to be able to affix the label. I didn't think I was going to be able to do it well enough necessarily. And also it was a lot of extra work. Not that making a Big Mac container or a cigarette pack isn't a lot of work. It really was.
Yeah.
But, and I'm sure there's probably more images. If you see the cigarette packs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's no details. I'm not sure.
It'll
like
come through. Yeah.
Yeah, like that beer case. I mean, that's completely made from scratch. So it takes hours and hours and hours and hours. And like I say, it wasn't to try to fool anybody. It was just to explore. Okay, here we go. So like the cigarette packs are made, the matchbook, the matchbooks are made, the cigarettes are made all from scratch. And the only thing that isn't is a cap or a label that you see on a beverage container.
Wow. I just think that, I mean, these are very striking. How are people responding to this when they see it in a gallery or in a museum?
I mean, this is even more like, I've shown this work, I guess, at SOFA and at some galleries and stuff. SOFA was where I think people had the most amount of access to it.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
you would have you would have people put their their own trash into, like, let's say I had a trash can with trash coming out of it. They would put their trash in the trash can too. You know,
And so and then the gallery would have to pick out the trash from
yeah,
your work, right?
yeah. I mean, it would happen, a couple times per show or whatever.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I mean, people have, that's what's nice about this work is it's objects that people do not care about at all.
yeah.
And that's a great thing to play with, because people have, they say like, well, why would you make that? That's so stupid. Like, that's already out here everywhere, which agreed. Um, and then, or people say like, well, that's really, I don't know, everybody's unique take on it is really great. And I like the sort of low, like, I like that somebody who, I'm not trying to make any sort of like art really. It's like, people don't have to care that it's art. They can just understand it however they want.
Right, right. But then in seeing it, I think you are communicating that these are objects, these are things that we see every day in our lives. But because that you have singled them out, you've made them a bit more precious, or put them in front of people so that they have to lean in perhaps a little bit more to figure out what is this artist trying to say, or what am I getting out of it as I witness it as a piece.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of people who, after they see, especially that body of work, the realistic stuff, that will, comment in my Instagram or something like, well, I can never look at a soda bottle out in
Yeah,
the same way.
yeah,
And that, hopefully they also, well, it doesn't matter to me, but like for me, I don't look at it the same way either. Cause I mean, for instance, if there's a Coke bottle out in the street, that's free advertising for Coke, right? I mean,
yeah, yeah,
it's not like, I mean, certainly Coca-Cola doesn't care if there's a bunch of Coke bottles all over the place, right?
yeah.
And if it's free advertising, well, that's just another bonus. If you know about the bottle bill, this is in part of doing all this trash stuff. I did some research, and the bottle bill is the bill that went through where the manufacturer you'll pay a deposit on the soda bottle at a grocery store, and then you can return that bottle for the refund.
Mhm.
There was a massive lobby against that bill, such that only 11, I think it's 11 states do it. It was originally proposed to be a nationwide thing. And they lobbied really hard against it. And who knows exactly what their agenda was, but certainly they didn't want to, they don't care about refuse being all over the place. It was more expensive, I suppose, for them to try to approach it that way. Or, to give a refund for the thing. I don't know exactly who's on the hook for all the money that's expended or paid out, but they lobbied against it. So you can just make a guess that it would cost them more money. So
It all costs money one way or the other. I would imagine there is a cost one way or the other, whatever point of view you have about
well,
it.
there's no, if you provide a product and you do not hold yourself responsible at all for any sort of, after the product is in the customer's hand, then that's cheaper for you.
Yeah, yes, yes.
So,
But we all pay because somebody's got to take it out or recycle it or bury it or whatever that they do for it. So, what I also find fascinating with all this is that
let
when
me
I,
let
go
me just,
ahead.
yes, but that's, I mean, what you were saying, most of the things you said, throwing it away, recycling it, the the corporation, let's say it's Coca-Cola, is levying that cost onto either the municipality or the public, or but not themselves, right?
Right.
And, you know, we can decide whether they should take on all the cost of collecting all the waste of the products that they put out, but clearly they would rather privatize the profits and make public all the cost of collecting the waste, right?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. You know, as we look at this and whether it's regarded as, you regard it as art or not, I think because it requires a viewer to witness it and to come up with their own reflection on it, their own way of seeing it and thinking, perhaps looking at trash differently. I will say that in the beginning, looking at your work, I thought that the painted white pieces, you know, created such a monotone element to the installation that you lean in. But then looking at the color that you bring into it now, the realistic color, that I just find those so fascinating. So what was inspiring you then to, okay, so I'm going to paint them, you know, these monotone, either the white or I'll mirror them, or there'll be these different colors. What made you then want to go to this realistic route? Was it more to create the trick on the eye for the viewer, or I'm just
Yeah,
curious.
no, that was never the, in fact, I sort of, I'm sometimes a little, I'm not very enthusiastic that can be a part of it. I mean, purely, there's a lot of sort of trompe-l'oeil type stuff, and that is the exclusive reason it's made, right? And I don't care about that at all. So like that's a small part of it, and that's fine with me, but it has nothing to do with the reason I made it. And if we go back to, everything is monochromatic in some way or another, because when I first made the trash, it was a really freeing thing, because I didn't have to worry about pattern or color. I could make this object, and so I made it in clear. That was just, glass comes in a clear variety most frequently, especially back then. And so just to make the object was enough. So I made them in clear. At first, I made a lot of the stuff in clear, and then I said, like, well, I can, you know, I'll paint it white, or I'll make it out of some colored glass that's just one color. But it was always enough. It was always enough for me to have the form there. And if it was clear or if it was one color, once it started to be just in glass colors, once I started to incorporate different variety of color, for some reason, there's just too much information. Like, there was quite enough, I thought, for the viewer to have the object, the form of it. If it was clear, there was a lot of reflection and stuff. It's odd to have a can that's got a transparent glass. Like, it's an odd thing. It's not odd to make a water bottle, because it looks sort of like it would look. And then the realistic stuff, like I was saying, was just an exploration of what I was doing, and it just led in that direction, but not for any specific reason.
Well, I like the incorporation of all of the other materials too, the paper and that those were all put together by you as well, right?
Well, yeah, I hired an artist as well to help me do it, but yeah, and it was really nice, because like, I had no agenda with making that work. And so if I was like, oh, I'm going to make some McDonald's stuff, I just would have to source. I'd have to source whatever material seemed appropriate for it. Like a matchbook, when I made a matchbook, was really interesting, because it was some sort of like harder paper, some sort of cardstock for the matchbook cover. And then for where you strike it was, I forget exactly what I did there. But the match itself, then I had to find like kind of a crappy sort of cardboardy stuff. This name taken from the interior of a beer case, like that sort of thinner cardboard that's inside those. I might have used that to make the matches. And then the matches, I would dip the match in wax, and then I would like dip it again. I'd dip it kind of further, and that would leave that residue mark, and then a little bit, and then I taped it off and spray painted it white.
Oh, man.
And then I made the staple that holds everything together. I made that out of wire. So it's just really fun to explore what material. Again, it's one of those things that freed me up from designing. The design was already there. And
Yeah.
that's, of course I love to design and create things because I've done my whole life basically, but it was nice to be free from that part of it and just be mimicking something and have it's all dictated to you. And I just have to just figure out what materials need to happen.
So you live in Pittsburgh, and what we see behind you is kind of your home studio. So talk a little bit about what your practice is and how do you approach it, and talk a little bit about why Pittsburgh and what Pittsburgh, why that is your place of choice to create your work.
Yeah, well, I came to Pittsburgh to teach. It was the first time I ever taught glass, was at the Pittsburgh Glass Center. And that was in like 2003 or 2004, I think. And I was about to move somewhere else. I was living in South Carolina at the time. And so I moved here. I thought it was a fantastic city for a million different reasons. It really is a great city. And I also always wanted to own a building sort of to live in. And this was clearly an opportune city for that. We didn't pull the trigger on it for quite a while, but I lived in an old brewery with a bunch of artists for a while. The old Duquesne Brewery, it's called the Brew House in the South Side. That was quite a lot of fun. And then a friend of mine from there, we bought an old elementary school about 6 or 7 years ago. And that's why, like that's a chalkboard right there.
Yeah.
These windows, I mean.
Yes. How perfect is that?
It's
how
pretty great.
Perfect. Yes.
It's pretty cool.
I think that's great. So then do you have furnaces? Do you have the heat portion?
No, I use a torch.
Yeah.
And like I said, I use different studios. I use some studios for the torch working, and then I use my studios here for lots of other things. I do some metalsmithing still. We've got a wood shop in the basement. We've got sort of iron working a little bit. We have a couple of other friends in rotation sort of that use our space as well. And my girlfriend, Sarah Beth, uses some space here for metalsmithing and for cold working of the glass. We do a lot of different things. There's a lot of space here, so it's pretty nice that way.
Well, for the grade school, how many classrooms do you have in that building?
Well, my friend Theo and I share it. We bought it together. We kind of split it in half for our live work, and then we share other parts of the space. But I think it's around 14 to 15,000 square feet.
Oh, that's
pretty
that's
good.
wonderful. It is pretty good. Right time.
The room that I'm in is like 950 square feet, and I have 4 of these, and then I have a big hallway, and that's my space. So it's pretty good.
That is pretty good. It looks fantastic. Well, as we are getting through this interview, I'm just wondering if there are others that might have questions for you. And so this would be the time that if anyone in our audience has any questions, or if you want to write something into the chat below. Matt, this is the first time, and as we wait for people to chime in with questions, please feel free to do that. But this is the first time you and I have had conversation.
Yeah.
And I've lived with your work for the last 4 to 5 years, and have toured people through it and heard comments. And I just think that your practice is so exciting and what you're doing. And I really appreciate even your point of view about what it is that you're doing and why you're doing it. And really it is all up to the audience to make their determination of what they want to get out of it, right?
Yeah. Well, it's very nice to meet you. And I think, yeah, it's, the fact that you hadn't had my particular insights into the work is also fine, because you can figure out what you think about it just as well. I think it does help, over the years, I do hear a lot, well, not so much anymore, but early on, oh, this is about recycling, this is about the environment. And like I said, I was delusional a little bit sometimes, thinking, oh, that is what this work is about, but it's not at all. I mean, it is. It's a comment sometimes on just how wasteful just capitalism is. But that's not why I make the work.
Yeah.
I mean, I make it because I'm intrigued by the forms.
Yes.
And then I also helped me for politics quite a lot.
Yeah.
Because it is all political. Every aspect of the trash that you see, the trash I make, has a political angle to it.
Yeah, it sure does. I had seen Trish Duggan on the Zoom earlier. If she's still on, I would, just because Trish is responsible for starting this museum and creating this fabulous collection that we get to show here every day to our audiences in St. Petersburg. I will have, and so Trish, if you were on, if you wanted to unmute yourself just to say hello, but I know you're in and out of things and maybe you couldn't stay for the whole Zoom. Are there any other questions? Anyone else want to ask Matt any other questions? I don't see that right.
I no longer see Trish in the participants list, but I do have a question for Matt.
Okay, all right.
I'm curious, Matt, when you go out into the fields with your glass objects and you go place them wherever or near a trash can, if someone picks it up and puts it in the trash, do you retrieve the object, or is it left to its own devices?
Thus far, I'll go and collect it, because it's, it takes me like an hour to make a piece, right? So it's not going to serve me super well to just let it stay in the trash. I am trying to figure out how to give that piece. A lot of times it's a little too late. Let's say, if somebody throws it away, well, sometimes it's too late to go actually hunt them down and find them to give it to them, let's say. There's that option. But yeah, I mean, I grab it back out of really early in the game. I actually did this one of the first times at a craft show that I was exhibiting at. And I put the Coke bottle like in the aisle, and there was like a bench and the plant and stuff. There was all the nice stuff you have at a craft show. And this other craft person saw me do it, and they went and threw it away, and they like gave me like stink eye. Because I don't know, I don't remember how I left it there, but maybe I left it as if I was a consumer of it, in order to just hide the fact that I was just placing a Coke bottle in the aisle. And then I took it out of the trash and I put it back. And then actually this is when they gave me this, then they went and threw it away again. That's when they gave me the stink eyes. That was fun.
Well, I'll tell you what, if SOFA ever gets going again and you're there and you're placing those Coke bottles around trash, I'm going to pay extra attention.
Yeah, I mean, maybe,
so I find them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to figure out how to move in a direction that is more sort of just more interesting, really. Maybe I work with SOFA to have a performance angle. And I have a lot,
yeah.
we figure out how to incorporate that into the show, right? I mean, that's.
Yeah, I love that. I love that idea. I just,
Give me a call.
You got it. That's wonderful. Well, so before we sign off, I do want to mention that at Imagine Museum, we'll be having another opening on Saturday, April 30th. It will be our call to artists. We did a call to artists for all of the artists working in glass in the state of Florida to submit works that actually demonstrated there in some way the influence that this state has on them. So that actually, we're going to be opening that Saturday, April 30th from 6:30 to 8:30. So if anyone is interested, tickets are on sale now. So you can either go to our website at imaginemuseum.com, or you can call us at 727-300-1700 to get tickets. It should be a fabulous evening, and it will continue with the Florida theme. So we'll have steel drums and the whole works, just to make it fun for all the participants. Matt, I hope you make it down to St. Petersburg sometime, so that you can see Imagine Museum.
Yeah, I would love to. I missed out on the opportunity when the gas conference went down there, but.
Well, you know, we just opened then, and we're now a couple of years into it. So we continue to mature as it looks like your work continues to mature. And I'm just thrilled with this conversation. I wish you all the very best, and really, I have to keep following you. So before we sign off, what's next for you, do you think?
Well, I've actually kind of put some things on hold because I've been restoring some of the rooms in this building. It just has been too long, and I needed to kind of like really get at it. So
Yeah.
it takes quite a long time. You know, when you have a
Yes.
50 square foot maple floor, it takes a minute to restore it. And these windows and all that. But no, I mean, so that's actually part of my focus realistically right now. But
Yes.
no, I mean, I do a decent amount of stuff on Instagram, and just the collector base is really strong on there, and they really, you know, you're in direct connection with your collector. Whereas if with a gallery or something else, you're really separated from them.
Yeah.
So on Instagram, I'm directly connected. So people ask me for stuff, or I post something up, and then people are really interested, and you're talking to the person who's collecting. So it's really valuable that way. And so I do a lot of sort of business there. It's a low price point, you know, but
You bet.
I appreciate that because I'm in touch with the collector, you know.
Yes.
And then the trash is good too. I don't do as much as I used to really with it, because I think, you know, who knows really why, but if the market has changed or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, it's mostly just, you know, just dabbling with whatever I'm interested in and seeing if there's a market for it or not, whatever. I mean, if I make a lot of stuff for myself, you know.
I think that you're just a treasure, and you take treasure or you take stuff and make it treasure. So I like that also. So if there's no other questions or comments, I think this should be the end of our Zoom, Matt. It's I really look forward to meeting you in person sometime.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm going to follow you on Facebook. For some reason, I don't, or on Instagram. For some reason, I don't think I am. So I will do that for sure.
Definitely.
Okay. And anyone else, follow Matt on his Instagram account, and you'll see what's up next. And maybe we'll see the pretty floors when those get done too.
Yeah.
in your studio. It's a great pleasure, Matt. Thanks so much for being with us today. Till we see each other again. You betcha. So long.
Much appreciated.
Yes, me too. So long. Bye-bye.